First of all, good morning. And can you hear in the back?
Yes.
So again, welcome to all of you this morning, and especially welcome to those of you who are here for the first time, or as we sometimes say, you're here fresh. If you're here for the first time, fresh, then you're likely to be about to miss an opportunity in thinking that you don't know enough to engage in some practice of meditation. When actually being fresh is the state of mind that most of us wish to go back to, since when we're in the place of not knowing, we're more open, and our likelihood of experiencing the intended experience and the promise of the practice is in some way at its peak, because we don't know. So our meditation today is an all-day sit. Some of you have come possibly not knowing that it's an all-day sit. So the good news is you can decide to stay for the day, though you didn't know it was your intention. So my suggestion is make it your intention and stay for the day. We'll do 3 sessions of meditation this morning, separated by a short break. Actually, probably with this many people, it's a long break, so even more reason to stay. So we'll begin with what we always begin with before every one of our meditation sessions, whether it's done in a group or individually. It's generally the case that we will do much better if we turn our minds away from all of our usual occupations, preoccupations, and place our reliance, go for refuge to 3 jewels of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We normally start with the Buddha, but this morning, just thinking, it's important to recognize the Sangha. First, because without the community of practitioners, in all likelihood, none of us would be here. And especially that portion of the community of practitioners that we call the exalted Sangha or community, those who have accomplished the Dharma, the living ones and those no longer living, who provide the inspiration and the blessings to engage in the various practices. And because of our connection to them, we experience a greater degree of confidence, because when we see them, we have a sense that the promise of the tradition is embodied in them. And since I am also human, we can think, therefore, I could also accomplish it. That confidence is critical. We also have the jewel of the Dharma, which includes what you are doing right now, in all likelihood. Listening, contemplating what it is, what the meaning is. And about to engage in the practice according to the instructions about to be given. And then we have finally the Buddha of the 3 jewels. We might say, if we had these crown jewels, we would call the Buddha the crown jewel. As an historical figure, the Buddha is credited with the entire tradition, along with all of the disciples and practitioners coming down to this time, from ancient times, going all the way back 2,600 years to the Buddha. And in each one of us, we say we are endowed fully with the same awakened potential that the Buddha had. Someone once asked the Buddha what the difference between an ordinary person and the Buddha was, and the Buddha responded simply, the nature of our minds is the same. We both are endowed with the original awakened mind, The difference is simply that I recognize it, he said, and you don't. So from that perspective, we can draw a simple and useful conclusion that the entire path is coming to the place of, meant to bring us to the place of recognizing that awakened mind. One of our greatest obstacles is our tendency to identify with some sense of who we think we are, perhaps our career, perhaps our gender, perhaps our skills, and some of us from time to time, maybe all of us from time to time, identify with our worst aspects, our anger, jealousy, greed, and all the other conflicted emotional patterns. And so when we recite the liturgy for going to refuge, we also recite the bodhicitta prayer, which is about turning our minds toward others, making a concerted effort to hold the benefit of others above our own. And we'll come back to that a little later, but for now, we'll recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer together 3 times.
Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness.
Generally, it's said that a still mind is a condition of deep realization. When the mind is so busy that we are continually carried away by every thought and feeling that arises, it's difficult to engage in even ordinary activities effectively in that circumstance. But even more so in the meditation, then maybe we're just continually carried away by all the things that arise in the mind there too. So we can have a crisis of confidence that we are unable to engage effectively in the meditation. But fortunately, there are many ways by which we can bring about that still state of the mind. One metaphor that I personally find helpful if we imagine going to the Oregon coast and sitting on a cliff and watching the turbulent waves below and listening to the sound of those waves. We can, in a moment, imagine that we are in those waves, and suddenly we feel fearful. But in the next moment, we realize we're not in the waves, and the fear dissipates. When the fear dissipates, then we actually can have a sense of joy, an appreciation for those turbulent waters, and an appreciation for the safety of sitting on the cliff. And so too in our practice of calm abiding, sometimes the mind is not still. Sometimes the mind feels as though it cannot be stilled. And so one of the variations on the practice of calm abiding can be to look at and listen to the turbulence in the mind, all of the things that are arising. And sometimes we can look at those things without attachment to them, without aversion to them. And in looking at them, they become the object of the meditation. So this is generally considered not a beginner's practice. But sometimes beginners do particularly well with it. You, the fresh ones. Who don't yet know what you're up against, have a special opportunity So in any case, just as a sense of where we're going this morning, we can begin not with the turbulent mind first by just noticing the breath without holding any expectation, hopefully. We can notice the coming and going of the breath. Just very simple, no commentary, no expectation, and no control of the breath. Just developing the awareness of noticing our bodies through the noticing of the breath. So for fresh people and stale people, we're almost certainly going to be distracted. Can be helpful to acknowledge that from the beginning. The issue is not to avoid the distraction, because that's just another distraction. The issue is, what do you do when you discover you've been distracted? No fault in being distracted. Especially since you have no choice. But when you're distracted and you discover that you're distracted, the issue then is of critical importance. In that very moment of that discovery of being distracted, immediately bring your mind back to the meditation. Immediately come to notice the breathing, the movement of the air, the rise and fall of the chest or the abdomen. And if you have to do that 100 times in an hour, the measure of the quality of your meditation is, did you come back, or were you seduced by the distraction? Develop the habit of always returning when you see you're distracted. No exceptions. And your meditation will gradually improve. So if you can follow those instructions now for the duration of this session, which is short. So now as we come to the end of this session, we will recite together a dedication which runs like this. We say, by this virtue, which means by what I have just engaged in, this meditation practice, which of course we are meant to think of as a virtue. May I quickly realize Mahamudra, which is to say, recognize that pure, awakened state of mind, and establish all beings without exception in this state. So this aspiration to accomplish Mahamudra and the wish that that would become a cause for the awakening of all beings then gives our meditation some of its own momentum following the end of the session. And that momentum we can experience on the next session and the session after and days after. That momentum connects us to the meditation in a fruitful way. So we'll recite this short dedication together once.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
So now, since you've all decided to stay for the entire day, the break will be 15 minutes or so. And some of you may not know, but wish to know, there are 3 bathrooms in this house. One of them is upstairs, right across, there's a stairway right across the hall, and there's a stairway down into the basement also right across the hall, and there's another restroom down there just to the right of the stairs. And there's also another restroom in the back of the kitchen. So in addition to that, there are things to make a cup of tea with in the kitchen, hot water urns and cups and so on. So if you wish to have a cup of tea on the break, make yourself one. On our all-day sit, on the breaks, we observe silence to maintain our sense of where we are with the meditation. If we speak, we tend to lose our place. So every time we sit down, we're kind of feeling like we're starting over again. So maintain silence on the break up until the lunch break. Okay, I think that's it.